My mom didn't invite me to her 59th birthday, but my sister did, and only to mock me. When I arrived, my mom sighed, "Don't make a scene." Then a family friend walked up and said, "You deserve to know the truth about why you're really here." I shouldn't have gone. I knew it the second I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. The house looked the same: white siding, neatly trimmed hedges, the wind chime Mom had had since I was a kid swaying gently in the breeze. The cars in the driveway were familiar, too. My parents' SUV, my uncle's blue sedan, Mallory's STPID little convertible that Dad had bought her when she graduated college. I gripped the steering wheel, my stomach twisting. I hadn't been invited. Not really. Mom hadn't texted me. Dad certainly hadn't. And I would have been fine with that. It wasn't the first time I'd been left out of a family event. It wasn't even the 10th time. I'd stopped expecting things like invitations, updates, or even basic respect years ago. But Mallory had reached out. I should have known better. Mom's birthday dinner is at 7. She'd texted 2 nights ago. "You should come." That was it. No warmth, no excitement, just a statement. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, things had changed. Maybe Mom was finally ready to include me again. Maybe Dad had convinced her. Maybe Mallory had actually wanted me there. But as I sat there in my car, staring at the front door, I knew I'd been an idiot for thinking that. I was here for a reason, but it sure as wasn't because they wanted me. Still, some pathetic, desperate part of me clung to hope. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe they wouldn't make me feel like a stranger in my own family. So, like an idiot, I got out of the car. I knocked, even though I knew I didn't have to. I'd spent 18 years of my life in this house. I knew where the spare key was. I knew the way the lock stuck if you turned it too fast. But I knocked anyway. The door swung open, and Mallory stood there, her eyes sweeping over me like she was already disappointed. "Oh," she said, her lips twitching into a smirk. "You actually came." I forced a smile. "You invited me, didn't you?" "Yeah." She stepped aside. "Come in, I guess." The house smelled like garlic and roasted meat, like fresh bread and wine. Laughter drifted from the dining room, silverware clinking against plates. It was warm, familiar, but I didn't feel at home. I hadn't in a long time. As I stepped inside, the first person I saw was Mom. She was standing by the kitchen island, a wine glass in her hand, deep in conversation with my aunt. She must have caught sight of me in her peripheral vision because she sighed loudly. Then she set her glass down and turned to face me. "Don't make a scene," she muttered under her breath. The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. "Nice to see you too, Mom," I said, keeping my voice light. She didn't respond. I looked past her, spotting Dad near the dining table. He gave me a brief nod, like I was some casual acquaintance instead of his daughter, before turning back to his conversation. The lump in my throat grew. I should have left right then, turned around, walked out, and spared myself whatever was about to happen. But I stayed. Maybe because I was stubborn. Maybe because some deep, wounded part of me wanted to prove that I could be here, that I belonged. I wandered toward the dining table, where familiar faces sat, family friends, cousins, people I'd known since childhood. They all greeted me, polite but distant, like they weren't sure if they were allowed to be too friendly with me. Like Mom might see. I barely had time to process it before someone stepped up beside me. "You deserve to know the truth about why you're really here," a quiet voice murmured. I turned, startled. It was Lillian, one of Mom's old friends. She was older, maybe in her mid-60s now, her sharp eyes softened by something that almost looked like guilt. "What are you talking about?" I asked. She hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the dining room. Then she exhaled. "They needed a distraction." My stomach dropped. A distraction for what? Before she could answer, a spoon clinked against the glass. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" Mom's voice rang out, cutting through the quiet chatter. I turned back toward the dining room, just in time to see her standing beside Dad, a radiant smile on her face. "We have some wonderful news," she announced. "Mallory is engaged." A beat of silence. Then applause. Cheers. People rushed to Mallory's side, congratulating her, gushing over her ring. And suddenly I understood. They hadn't invited me to be part of the celebration. They'd invited me to be the contrast, the failure, the one they could look at and think, "At least Mallory turned out okay." I should have walked away. I should have swallowed my pride and left with my dignity intact. But then Mallory caught my eye from across the room, and she smirked. Then, loudly enough for everyone to hear, she said, "I mean, it's not like you'd ever have a wedding of your own, right?" Laughter. Real, actual laughter. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. Mom didn't correct her. Dad didn't tell her to stop. Nobody did. They all just laughed. Like it was some kind of joke. Like I was the joke. Mallory kept going, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "At least now you have an excuse to buy a nice dress. You won't be the family disappointment forever." The room went quiet, people awkwardly shifting, but no one stood up for me. I clenched my jaw, my pulse roaring in my ears. Then, I turned to my mother. You really let her talk to me like that? I asked, my voice steady. Mom sighed, exasperated. Don't make a scene, she repeated, taking another sip of wine. And Dad, my father, the man who was supposed to protect me? He muttered under his breath. You could at least pretend to be happy for her. Something inside me snapped. I took a deep breath, then I smiled. You're right, I said, raising my glass. I should be happy for Mallory. Then, with the brightest voice I could muster, I toasted to Mallory, the perfect daughter, the perfect fiancée. May her marriage be as successful as Mom and Dad's. Silence. Mom stiffened. Dad went pale. Mallory's smirk vanished. Because everyone in this room knew the truth. Mom and Dad's marriage was a disaster. It had survived affairs, screaming matches, money problems, and nights spent sleeping in separate rooms. And I had just shattered the illusion they worked so hard to maintain. A ripple of murmurs spread through the guests. Someone coughed. Then I leaned in close to Mallory, just for her to hear, be careful, sis. You might end up just like them. Then I set my glass down, turned on my heel, and walked out. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt free. I walked out of that dining room with my head high, but the second I stepped outside into the cool night air, my hand was shaking. The adrenaline was still rushing through me, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The laughter, the smirks, the way no one had defended me. It all played on a loop in my mind. I took a deep breath and unclenched my fists. I wasn't about to break down in my parents' driveway. Not yet. I made it to my car and yanked the door open, but before I could get inside, I heard the door swing open behind me. Wait. I froze, my grip tightening on the car door. I turned, already expecting Mallory, maybe even Mom, but it wasn't either of them. It was Dad. For a second, I was almost relieved. Maybe, just maybe, he had finally realized how Krell this whole night had been. Maybe he was going to apologize, tell me he should have stood up for me, that he was sorry. But when I looked at his face, I knew better. His jaw was tight, his hands shoved into his pockets like he didn't even want to be standing there. What was that? He asked, his voice low and even. I huffed out a laugh, shaking my head. Are you serious? You embarrassed your mother. There it was. Now you were right. Not Mallory went too far. Not I should have said something. No, you embarrassed your mother. I felt something inside me harden. She embarrassed herself. I shot back. So did Mallory. But I guess none of that matters, right? Because I'm the problem. Dad exhaled through his nose, the way he always did when he was losing patience. You could have handled that differently. Oh, you mean like how you handled it? By sitting there and saying nothing? His jaw clenched. That's not fair. No, Dad. What's not fair is the fact that you've let them treat me like this for years, and you still think I'm the problem. His eyes darted away, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something that almost looked like shame. But it didn't last long. You know how your mother is, he muttered. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I do. And I know how you are, too. He didn't say anything. We stood there in the driveway, the sounds of the party still drifting from inside. Someone laughed. Someone else called for more wine. Life was continuing, as if nothing had just happened, as if I was already forgotten. Dad ran a hand through his thinning hair. Just don't do this tonight. It's Mallory's night. You don't have to come back inside, but don't make this bigger than it already is. I stared at him. He still didn't get it. It had never been about Mallory's night. It had never been about this one dinner. This was years of being pushed aside, ignored, treated like I wasn't worth their time. And he thought I was just being dramatic. I opened my car door. Good talk, Dad. I got in and slammed the door shut before he could say anything else. And then I drove away. But I wasn't going home. I needed air. I needed to clear my head. I needed a damn drink. So I did the one thing I never thought I'd do. I drove straight to Lillian's house. The woman who had tried to warn me before the dinner. The woman who had known something I didn't. I didn't know why I was going there. Maybe because she was the only one who had seemed even remotely on my side. Maybe because I had a feeling that whatever she had to say, it was something I wasn't ready for. But I needed to hear it anyway. I pulled into Lillian's driveway, my hand still gripping the wheel too tightly. Her house was small, cozy, the kind of place that smelled like fresh coffee and old books. I didn't even know if she'd let me in. I didn't even know why I was here. But before I could talk myself out of it, the porch light flicked on and the front door creaked open. Lillian stepped out, wrapped in a cardigan, her sharp eyes scanning me. Then, with a small sigh, she said, "Come inside." I followed her in, the warmth of the house instantly making me realize how cold I'd been. She gestured for me to sit at the kitchen table before pouring 2 cups of tea. "I figured you'd come," she said, sliding one toward me. I stared at her. "You knew?" She took a slow sip. "I knew your mother had a plan. I just didn't know how bad it would be." I swallowed hard. Why? Why do they treat me like this? She was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. Then she looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Because you're not like them." she said simply. That made me laugh, a bitter, tired sound. No kidding. No, I mean it, she pressed. Your family thrives on control, on keeping up appearances. Your mother, especially. She needs to believe that she's right about everything, about how to raise a daughter, about what success looks like, about who deserves love and who doesn't. And you, she tilted her head. You never played along. You never fit into her version of what a daughter should be. And she hates that. Something inside me twisted. I thought back to every time Mom had dismissed me, every time she compared me to Mallory, every time I'd been left out of family gatherings with an oops, we forgot to tell you. She can't control you, Lillian continued. And she resents you for it. I exhaled, rubbing my temples. So what now? I muttered. Just keep letting them treat me like this? Just accept that I'll always be the outsider? Lillian studied me for a long moment. Then, she leaned back in her chair, a slow, knowing smile spreading across her face. No, she said. I think it's time you remind them exactly who you are. And that was when it hit me. I didn't have to disappear. I didn't have to slink away and let them pretend I was nothing. I could take my power back. So I did. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I posted on Facebook. It was simple, casual, just a smiling picture of me with the caption, "Exciting things ahead. So grateful for the people who actually support me." And just like that, the first crack in my family's carefully controlled image appeared. I wasn't supposed to be confident. I wasn't supposed to be happy. And judging by the fact that Mallory texted me less than an hour later, it worked. Mallory, what the does that post mean? I smirked, sipping my coffee. Me? Oh, just something I've been working on. You'll see soon enough. I could practically feel her irritation through the screen. Mallory, stop being dramatic. I left her on read. Then I made a few phone calls. 2 weeks later, I threw a party. A huge party. At a beautiful venue. Invitations were sent out. Announcements were made. I even hired a professional photographer. And when the night of the event arrived, people were buzzing. See, my family had spent years pretending I was nothing. That I wasn't successful. That I wasn't worth their attention. So I decided to give them something they couldn't ignore. The venue was packed. Old friends, co-workers, even a few distant relatives who'd always been too afraid of Mom to reach out to me before. People I hadn't seen in years came up, congratulating me, asking me what the big news was. And finally, when I stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room, I let the suspense build. Then, with a smile, I grabbed the mic and said, "Thank you all for coming. I know there's been some speculation, so let me clear things up. No, I'm not getting married. No, I'm not having a baby. But I'm finally celebrating something that matters." A few murmurs spread through the crowd. I took a deep breath and said, "For years, I let people make me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I wasn't important, like I didn't belong. But tonight, I'm choosing to celebrate myself, my growth, my success, and most importantly, my freedom from people who never deserved me in the first place." Silence. Then applause. Loud, thunderous, genuine applause. I spotted Mom and Dad in the crowd, stiff and red-faced. Mallory, standing beside them, looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. And I smiled, because for once they were the outsiders. They weren't the center of attention. They weren't in control of the narrative. I was, and it felt amazing. Mom called me the next morning. I let go to voicemail. The text came soon after. "MOM, we need to talk." I stared at it for a long moment. Then, finally, I replied, "Me, do we?" Because I think everything I needed to say has already been said. She didn't respond. Dad sent me a short, reluctant text a few days later. "Dad, proud of you." That one I actually smiled at. Mallory? She didn't say a word. But I knew, deep down, that a key at her. She'd spent her whole life trying to outshine me. But in the end, I'd won. Not because I was richer. Not because I was married. But because I had peace. And they only had their empty little world of control and judgment. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be part of it. Because I was finally, truly free. A week passed. Then two. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the constant, nagging weight of my family's judgment pressing on my shoulders. No anxious checking of my phone. No waiting for an apology that would never come. Just peace. But I knew it wouldn't last forever. Sure enough, on a quiet Sunday morning, my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring. Then, out of sheer curiosity, I played the voicemail. Her voice was tight, controlled. "I don't know what you were trying to prove with that stunt, but I hope you're happy. You embarrassed your family." I smirked, shaking my head. She still didn't get it. Embarrassing them? That was never the goal. The goal was proving I didn't need them. I almost deleted the voicemail, but then she said something that stopped me cold. "We're still your family, whether you like it or not." For a long time, I believed that. I told myself that family was forever, no matter how much they hurt you. That I had to keep trying, keep earning their love. But I wasn't that person anymore. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I blocked her number. Then Dad's. Then Mallory's. Every single one of them. And just like that, the weight lifted. A year later, I got an email from Mallory. The subject line? Let's talk. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Her message was short, clipped. I heard about your promotion. Congrats. Mom and Dad want to see you. Let me know when you're free. No apology. No acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just the expectation that I would come back like nothing had happened. I stared at the email for a long time. Then, with a small smile, I typed my response. Thanks for the congrats. Hope you're well. But I have to be honest. I've built a life that doesn't include people who don't respect me. I hope you understand. And then, I blocked her too. And that, choosing myself, choosing peace, refusing to let them back in, that was my revenge. Because they'd spent years treating me like I was nothing. And now they had to live with the fact that they had lost me. And that was their own damn fault.